Your career begins here at Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, a deemed to be university, a nationally recognized and globally acclaimed destination to accomplish your academic aspirations. The Colonel Dr. JPR Research Park, along with the International Research Center, houses advanced research facilities that have 13 centers of excellence, 10 plus technology transfers, 100 plus patents, 10,000 plus reputed publications. The Satyabama Center for Advanced Studies is a state-of-the-art facility built with the aim to cater to the futuristic aspirations of our students with the aid of a metaverse studio, drone labs, makers space, media center, advanced characterization facilities, ICT-enabled classrooms, and supercomputing laboratories. The engineering departments are equipped with sophisticated infrastructure, fulfilling the academic and hands-on requirements of our students. The architecture department is furnished with sophisticated design studios and spacious drawing halls, all of which support the learning process of our postmodern generation architects. The Satyabama General Hospital, along with the School of Dental, Nursing, Pharmacy, and Physiotherapy, have advanced clinical facilities. The monumental Central Library houses a diverse collection of books, periodicals, and journals. Additionally, it also has an open-air theatre with a seating capacity of 1,000. The Management, Arts, Science, Law, and Hotel Management departments comprise of all the necessary and required facilities, creating the perfect ambience for our far-sighted students and catering to their skill set needs with the end goal of equipping them to live their dream. Our chain of laboratories with practical exposure equips our students to build a successful career. Our institution has a team of dynamic and outstanding teachers who are ever reachable to our enthusiastic students, promoting the spaces to learn and places to grow. Greenery around the campus greets and accommodates our students, who are the backbone of a developed nation, edging them on to achieve the summits of their success. Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology. Your career begins here at Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, a deemed to be university, a nationally recognized and globally acclaimed destination to accomplish your academic aspirations. The Colonel Dr. JPR Research Park, along with the International Research Center, houses advanced research facilities that have 13 centers of excellence, 10 plus technology transfers, 100 plus patents, 10,000 plus reputed publications. The Satyabama Center for Advanced Studies is a state-of-the-art facility built with the aim to cater to the futuristic aspirations of our students with the aid of a metaverse studio, drone labs, makers space, media center, advanced characterization facilities, ICT-enabled classrooms, and supercomputing laboratories. The engineering departments are equipped with sophisticated infrastructure, fulfilling the academic and hands-on requirements of our students. The architecture department is furnished with sophisticated design studios and spacious drawing halls, all of which support the learning process of our postmodern generation architects. The Satyabama General Hospital, along with the School of Dental, Nursing, Pharmacy, and Physiotherapy, have advanced clinical facilities. The monumental Central Library houses a diverse collection of books, periodicals, and journals. Additionally, it also has an open-air theatre with a seating capacity of 1,000. The
Good morning to everyone. I warmly welcome to all participants. On behalf of the Center for Ocean Research and National Facility for Coastal and Marine Research, supported by Ministry of Earth Sciences and the Government of India at Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, I warmly welcome you all to Ocean Research Knowledge Series 2026. Before we begin, I kindly request everyone to keep your microphone on mute throughout the section. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat box. They will be discussed addressing during the question and answering session. Today expert lecture title is the ocean acidification and the effects on marine calcifying organism, the ecosystem health and sustainable mitigation strength. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. J. Balamurugan, the Assistant Professor Research, the Center for Ocean Research, Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology. Welcome, sir. The session is over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ram. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Let me share my screen first. Shall I proceed now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for the nice introduction, Mr. Ram. So in this forum, I'm going to deliver a talk about ocean acidification, how the marine cancer-bearing organisms and ecosystem health that is being impacted. Further, what are the sustainable mitigation strategies that can be formed or that can be followed up to mitigate the ocean acidification? So before going to the presentation, here are the outline of the presentation. First, I introduce the ocean acidification, how the acidification process occurs based on the ocean chemistry, and then what are the causing factors of it. Post that, the marine cultivating organisms, and then the impacts of ecological strategies, how it is being behaved up with respect to the ocean acidification. Further, socio-economic consequences, and then what are the mitigation strategies that can be followed up. At last, what are the perspectives in a future way that will be concluded by the whatever the slide that has been discussed, that will be concluded at the end. Hope the previous speakers have speak about all the ocean and the what are the main theme and then key points, what are the basic criteria that is being with underneath with the ocean. So of course we all know that the 70% of the Earth's surface that has been covered by the ocean, namely your Atlantic Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, and then Southern Ocean. So, do you believe it or not, the synthesis of the phytoplankton synthesis that will be causing 50% of the atmospheric oxygen approximately. So, further, the emission from the environmental carbon dioxide from anthropogenic emissions and then natural emission that will be leading up to the increment in the carbon dioxide emissions. The entire ocean that will be taking care of the 25 to approximately 30% of the CO2 emission that is being taken care by the ocean. Of course, almost the identified to more than 2 million identified marine species that is that is laid up with the ocean marine environment. We all know that that provides food, transportation, and then that will regulate the climatic regulation. That is, see, the 71% of the Earth's surface that is being covered. That is why this is very most important in the climatic regulation of the globe. It will also improve the the enhance the tourism and then livelihoods of the fisheries and the associated environments. Yeah, here we comes. Hope you remember earlier talk that has been delivered by Dr. Kumar. He just touched up the ocean acidification, how it is being involved, what are the primary factors involved in it. As he likely told, yeah, I'll just brush up the things. Even though the atmospheric carbon dioxide that is dissolved, that is when it contacts with the marine surface. So the combination of carbon dioxide and then water molecule, that is H2O, that forms carbonic acid H2CO3. Further, this carbonic acid will be dissociated into bicarbonate ions and then hydrogen ions. Post that, this bicarbonate ion will be dissociated into H plus, that is proton, and then carbonate ion. So because of this increment in the hydrogen ion in the marine environment, that will lead to the decrease in the pH, which means the acidity will be increased towards at the moment the marine pH approximately around 8.1. That will be leading to the decrement of the marine pH because of the anthropogenic activities, natural environmental activities, as well as the industrial factors. Industrial sector contributes major CO2 liberation that causes the increment of the H plus ions in the marine environment. That is because of the CO2 liberation. There you can see in the right hand side picture, it has been remained over here. Yeah, this is how it is being 8.1 and how it is being deployed to the ground level of lesser pH range. That is because of the carbon dioxide, the number of carbon dioxide molecules will be much more in the environment. That leads to the decrement in the pH, increase in the ocean acidification. So because of this ocean acidification that characterize, that will lead to the globally, that is a major concern. Of course, it will increase the greenhouse gases effect and the complete carbonate chemistry of the marine environment will be changed completely negatively in a negative way. Further, it will reduce the carbonate ion availability, since the H plus ion interact with the carbonate ion, that will leads to the increment in the pH towards acidity, so that the carbonate availability in the marine surface that will be decreased. So why we need to talk about, or what are all the main ingredients, or what are all the main parameters, in a direct way that ocean acidification causes. There you can see at present, or in a certain period of time, the ocean acidification that will be in the environment and the marine environment, that will lead to the leaching of corals, as well as the impact on the marine diversity and then food web. All these parameters will be destroyed in day by day. This is the degrees, and then over a period of time it will be completely destroyed by means of the ocean acidification. That is of the natural environment that is being disturbed day by day. In over a period of time, it will be destroyed completely. So we need to very aware of that, and we need to have precaution measures, and then what are the things that can be bloom up, or boomed up the acidification towards basicity, that we need to take action further. This is the exact reaction what it happens. The emissions of carbon dioxide, that will be when it contacts with the surface water of marine environment, that is ocean, that dissolves, and then the formation of carbonic acid, that is H2CO3, will be formed. Further, as I told earlier, that carbonic acid will be dissociated into bicarbonate ion and hydrogen ion. Further, that bicarbonate ion will be dissociated into carbonate ion and then H plus ion. By doing so, this increment of hydrogen ion, that will be the major cause for the concern of ocean acidification. So before industrial revolution, that is pre-industrial revolution, the pH was about 8.2. So at the moment, it is around approximately 8.1. Over a period of time, there is a global data stating that over a period of time, which means at 21st century, 7.1 to 7.7 to 7.8. That is because of at the moment, the industrial revolution and the industrial aspects and prospects of industrial revolution, and then at the moment how the industries are being operated, and then the emission from the industries by means of the carbon dioxide, that will be leading up to the decrement in the pH level. 2100th century, that will be of 7.1 to 7.8 pH range. If it is continuous further, and so on, what it is right now. So basically, these three things we need to talk about importantly in the carbonate chemistry. The first one is carbonic acid formation, that I told earlier, and then the increment of hydrogen ions. For this increment of hydrogen ion, the reduced carbonate ions will be there. That is why the basicity of the marine environment will be decreased. Yes, carbon cycles is one of the most important parameter in each and every aspects with respect to the marine environment. That is also one of the factor where the atmospheric carbon dioxide that will be taken up, and then because of this taken up carbon dioxide, the phytoplankton will undergo photosynthesis. Further, the respiration takes place with the living organisms in the marine environment. Further, at the end of the death, or it will be modified itself to goes into sedimentation. That sedimentation further goes on deployed in the ocean as a carbon storage. That is why ocean is termed as a global carbon sink. There we need to talk about the three major points. The first one is the absorption of carbon dioxide in the large, in a huge environment like marine environment. Ocean, as we discussed about the absorption of carbon dioxide, that is about 30% by marine environment, and then over a period of time, the long-term exposure will lead to the deposition of the carbon dioxide as a carbon source, carbon sink. Actually, it's a major sink since it is 71% in the globe. And then further, the stored carbon will be taken up by the nature, by God's grace, to regulate the climatic. And if there is any further climate regulation, that will be taken up for further processes to mitigate the climate regulations. So the saturation we need to talk about while we are dealing with the carbonate. So there is a factor called the saturation state of omega. If it is greater than 1, in that scenario, the conditions of this particular condition supports cell and skeleton formation in the marine organisms. Where it is less than 1, the water becomes very much corrosive, which causes the calcium carbonate that is dissolved in the marine environment. That is because of the pH range. So there are two main skeletons, that is of aragonite and calcite, or forms of calcium carbonate that has been used by the marine organisms such as corals, oysters, and even phytoplankton to form or build their shells and skeletons. in which in both of this the aragonite is more soluble than calcite, so that the organisms using aragonite are more vulnerable to ocean acidification. So of course we need to the aragonite are the most soluble in this particular too, so that we need to preserve if we want to preserve, or if we want to at least sustain the marine environmental thing, so we need to preserve this aragonite on the shells of the marine living organisms. So there are certain things that can be used to measure ocean acidification. First, electrodes. So as we all know, the electrode that is based on the potential difference, that electrode, the pH can be measured by means of protons. And then the autonomous sensor that can also use to monitor the ocean acidification in the open environments. And there is a technique called spectrometry, where it can be used the light absorption to indicate the pH of the environment. And then globally, the satellite observation can also make a huge impact, since it is a large, vast, 17% of the vast environment. So this will make a beautiful, observation as well as the data, global data. And of course, the continuous monitoring and observation that can also be used to identify ocean acidification. There is a term called GOAN, Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network. That is a monitoring network that is being, the data is being stored globally over a period of time. It can be standardized and it can be given for publicly. So these are the major two causes that can cause ocean acidification. First one is anthropogenic factors. There are certain criteria, certain parameters in that, in which burning of fossil fuels, burning of coals, oil, gas combustion that release CO2 in the environment. Second one is cement production. About 1 ton of cement production liberates 900 kg of carbon dioxide. Then just imagine, if you want to have 100 kg of cement, 90 kg of carbon dioxide will be liberated in the environment. So all these carbon dioxide will be taken up by the marine environment. That is why this much of ocean acidification causing day by day because of the industrial revolution. Further, apart from cement industry, that causes the major CO2 liberation. Apart from that, various industrial prospects, various industrial aspects, and then deforestation, transportation. Day by day, we are using transport, so that the liberation of carbon dioxide from that also will lead to the increment in the carbon dioxide in the marine environment, as well as the circumstances, the ecosystem. With respect to natural factors, the volcanic activity and then upwelling, respiration, of course, from the living organism on the earth, and then decomposition that will break down into carbon dioxide and then further molecules that will also add up carbon dioxide in the environment. And we cannot do nothing with the seasonal variability. That is because of the global warming causes, the CO2 causes global warming. Because of that, the seasonal variability will be there. That also causes carbon dioxide liberation much. That also leads to the ocean acidification much. Globally, there is what are all the oceans, that how it causes, and what are all the reasons behind that acidification, and what are the major species that is being impacted on that particular area of ocean, that is tabulated over here. If you take the polar regions, the relative acidification will be very much high. That is because the cold water absorbs more CO2, naturally low carbonate saturation. That is why the acidification is much over here in polar regions, where the tetrapods, cold water corals, and shellfish will be affected much directly. Towards to that, if you take further oceans, North Pacific Ocean, Southern Ocean, coastal oceans, and then tropical coral reef regions, that will be impacted in a very high to moderate level. At last, if you take that open tropical ocean, that will be impacted moderate with respect to ocean acidification. That is because the stable water chemistry with slower pH decline. That is why it is impacted marginally, that is moderately, with respect to ocean acidification, where the plankton and pelagic fish will be impacted much organisms in this particular region. We are coming to the next topic of marine calcifying organism. Because of the ocean acidification, the formation of shells on the marine organism, living organism, which will be having a skeleton, or which will be having the upper shells that will be made up of calcium carbonate. Because of this hydrogen ion increment in the marine environment, that will lead to the decrement in the carbonate ion. That is why the formation of calcium carbonate will be less on that particular species, that will impact negatively towards the growth and reproducibility and then behavior. These are the major concerns of that particular calcium carbonate based, marine calciifying organisms to evolve or to survive. Even these are more complicated in these days. There you can see I have listed out here some of the major organisms that is being affected directly by marine calcifying, by impact of marine calcification with respect to ocean acidification. First one is corals and then mollusks, tetrapods accordingly. I have tabulated over here. In which I will just touch about coral reefs. Coral reefs are the ecosystem engineers to create structural foundation of coral reefs by providing habitat to the whatever the living organism in and around in the environment of the marine. That will be taken up this the coral skeletons, coral structures, or coral forest to form to use the habitat to produce, to use as a habitat to use as a supporting system to the growth of its own as well as the food web of the biodiversity and the marine environment. Just imagine we are in a home where we are coming the day in day out. We are coming and going, and at the end we need to go home. No, so suppose that, say for example, in a routine basis we are doing so. If in a routine basis, if he or she will be allotted in a hostel, just imagine how fast he or she should be accommodated himself or herself to sustain or to mitigate what are the factors that is negative, gives negative impact on the survival of them. So accordingly, that is why what's happening in the marine environment, we need to preserve this coral reef first to accommodate all the marine living organisms. Almost, say for example, approximately 25% of all known marine species will be, depend on this particular corals. So this is most important. Even though it is, less than 1% of the at the top bottom of the ocean, it occupies only 1%. That will be a that will give support system for 25% of the almost all known marine species or organism in the marine environment. Yeah, of course, the biomineralization is a concept where the living organisms make minerals inside their bodies. That is because of the formation of calcium carbonate. As I told earlier, the skeletons will be made up of that calcium carbonate. For example, in humans, we can know that the calcium and phosphate that to build teeth and bones. For example, snails, the shells will be made up of calcium carbonate. Accordingly, in corals, the hard skeletons, the branches that will be made up of through the biomineralization process. There you can see in the picture how it is being made up of carbon dioxide and then calcium ion that will be in a formation. That will make a bond together to form calcium carbonate. That crystalline calcium carbonate forms a biomineralized structure on the living organism, whether it may be shell or skeleton that will be made up of. With respect to the ocean acidification, there are numerous animals, numerous species that is being impacted day by day, in which tetrapods are the most important and most sensitive towards the ocean acidification. Further, with respect to the acidification, corals and then mollusks, sea urchins, and the list goes on until fish. The physiological impacts that will be because of this, the physiological effects much more on the formation of the skeleton or shell, in which the reduced metabolism, the metabolism will be reduced much with respect to this, since the normal behavior will be the normal condition will be modified. So according to that, the species that will not be the formation of calcium carbonate will not be the transferred easily with respect to the condition, since it has been the favorable condition will be less carbonate ions. Increased carbonate ions, H plus ions will be less. If it is alternatively, the modification will be very much difficult, and then further over a period of time, it causes the decrease in the formation of the shell or skeleton, and further it will lead to the death. We have spoken about all these things. Further, this will impact ecologically with respect to the biodiversity, food web, and then the reduced fisheries ecosystem that will be explained in the next slide. Yeah, with respect to the food web, that we all know that phytoplankton will be using carbon dioxide and sunlight to synthesize energy. By means of energy, there will be liberating oxygen as well. So that phytoplankton will be taken up by zooplankton. That web goes on until that small fish and squids, large fish, the predators, finally the mammals even. So accordingly, if you destroy this phytoplankton with respect to that photosynthesis, if you reduce the photosynthesis of this by means of ocean acidification, the complete web will be destroyed. So that finally the output, even the living elements on the earth will be also much more certain percent. That is quite it is unavoidable to depend the food will be the living organism on the earth will be depending for their food with respect to the marine organisms or marine living animals that can be edible. So because of that, the biodiversity will be reduced negatively. With respect to these two, the fisheries and aquaculture industry will be impacted negatively much. That is because it is basically depending on one another, so that if you destroy the biodiversity, it will completely, starting from the phytoplankton food web, if you destroy it completely, the further the biodiversity will be decreased, and then the marine ecology will be destructed, and then further at the output, the fisheries and aquaculture, that will be destroyed completely if it goes on as it is right now. And there you see the right hand side, the acidified reefs will be weak reef. The framework will be very less, so that will not mitigate the storm damage completely, or even it will not slow down the what are the ocean tide and ocean tidal energy. The branches will be less in the because of the stress. The branches and skeleton of the coral reef will be less, so that the past tides, that with the energy of the tides will not be lessened because of this. If it is healthy reefs, the waves break over the reef, and the energy absorbed or dissipated over the period of time with respect to the branches and with respect to the healthiness of the coast, coral reefs, so that the coastline remains stable and then protected. Further, it will be a major habitat for the restoration of all the living animals, so that we need to preserve first these corals. So if you want to if you want to further stop the ocean acidification, or if you want to decrease the ocean acidification, we need to first increase or even sustain this particular corals. Yeah, we've spoken about this earlier, the social economic impacts of ocean acidification. Further, coming to the mitigation strategies, the first and foremost thing is to reduce carbon dioxide emission by means of renewable energy, and then the energy efficiency should be there. That is because of the liberation of carbon dioxide could be cut off. The carbon neutrality by means of the emissions through reduction and carbon offset measures to promote sustainable practices, which means of, say for example, there you can see in a concrete, we are using concrete that carbon dioxide. There is a concept called geopolymer. So there is no cement at all. That is absolutely cement-free material we can made up of. We can use that silicon and aluminum sources. Those are the geologically obtained sources, so that the carbon dioxide will be cut off by means of cement production. So that is an alternate. So accordingly, we have to find out alternates by use of carbon-free environment. Of course, the international agreement should be there, since there's a strengthening of global cooperation through agreements such as the well-known Paris Agreement. Accordingly, day to day, it should be, it should be evaluated, and then the protocols and the parameters should be changed accordingly with respect to the affecting of the system. Blue carbon cycle ecosystem is a most important one, in which mangroves, salt marshes, and seagrass are the major role of blue carbon ecosystem. These three plays a major role in the blue carbon ecosystem, where starting from the mangroves, salt marshes, and the seagrass, the blue carbon deposition will be in a different manner. The blue carbon will be deposited over here. Mangroves will be contributing major output in that with respect to blue carbon ecosystem. In the restoration aspect of the coral reefs, we can have certain methods. For example, coral gardening method. There we can collect the fragments of the corals that can be grown undergarden. That can be grown up in the undergarden. That can be outplanted. Over a period of time, it can be grown, and then that can be outplanted wherever it is required. And then coral nurseries can be formed further, since the habitat, whatever the environment or whatever the habitat that can be stored of the coral reefs, that can be taken up, the coral reefs can be formed in an artificial structure. In a laboratory condition, further the parameters can be assisted, and in a sustainable way, it can be modified, and then it can be restored in an environment where it is required. Of course, it is all about hydrogen ion concentration. So the alkalinity enhancement plays a major role, where if we enhance the alkalinity of the environment by means of deploying or by means of introducing further the basic materials that can liberate the hydroxyl ion, that will reduce the hydrogen ion concentration. So that plays a major role over a period of time. But the thing is that the challenge associated with this, that the scalability as well as the cost. If you are taking that particular basic materials from the environment, or if you are synthesizing it, the biggest of that, the environmental concerns are also there. So that also need to be optimized and modified. According to that, it can be deployed or it can be further enhanced to prevent ocean acidification. While talking about the ocean acidification, there are certain things that should be taken up further for further research studies, further laboratory scale studies, further experimentation should be done, further the stress level studies that should be accommodated over a period of time with respect to the corals even. So the genetic adaptation research that should be carried out further to sustain, at least if we cannot completely, we cannot stoppage of the carbon dioxide liberation by means of industrial revolution that we are in at the moment. So that how the coral reef how we can make the coral reefs can sustain the environment, in that aspect also we need to think about. And then in that aspect also we need to research further to complete the ecosystem in a better way, for the betterment of the biodiversity in the marine ecosystem. What is future technologies? The autonomous monitoring wires that can be deployed or that can be implemented, and then AI prediction models over a period of the standardization data that can be accommodated over a period of time, and that can be further followed up. So further, at finally, the ocean acidification in a certain way, the predictable model that can be come into public, that can be used for further strategic plans. And remote sensing aspects, genomics aspects, as well as the selective breeding of tolerant species, as we have discussed earlier, how the coral reefs, for example, coral reef that can be modified with respect to the survival of the fittest aspect, how it can be modified in that particular acidic environment, that can be scaled up, or that can be the modification methods or the technologies or the strategies that can be opted with respect to the research studies. So before concluding this, all these things can be done over a period of time. First and foremost things, we need to cut off the carbon dioxide liberation. Each and every individual have to tell ourselves or take a promise ourselves to reduce carbon dioxide liberation. Unless it is keep on adding the environment, there is much difficult to whatever the research studies or whatever the things that can be accommodated, whatever the strategic plans or whatever the policies or whatever the international agreement that can be made up to reduce this, that won't be work out if individuals or with respect to the industries cut off at least carbon dioxide over a period of time in a leisure amount, right? Then the ocean acidification is a major consequence of rising atmospheric carbon dioxide, which poses, of course, severe significant threat to the marine ecosystem. The marine calciifying organisms, including corals, molluscs, plankton, that is experiencing much less tolerable limits in terms of growth, and then even lower their reproductive success. These biological effects disrupt marine food webs and diminish biodiversity. That will be a shaking aspect in the marine ecosystem. Hence, the coastal protection should be ensured with respect to the carbon sequestration. Effective mitigation requires rapid reductions in CO2 emission. With respect to individuals, have to take utmost care to reduce all these things for the wellness of the marine environment as well as the marine livelihoods. The coordinated global action, integrated science, policy, and public engagement is essential to safeguard ocean health and ensure the resilience of marine ecosystem for future generations. So we need to reduce carbon dioxide by means of we can reduce restore reefs, and further it leads to protect biodiversity, and that will be added to the further livelihoods enhancement. And then at most the 71% of the ocean will be, if we take care of the ocean will take care of us. That's it. So in this, the SDG goal 13 and 14, that will be a major concern with respect to ocean acidification, and because of the liberation of carbon dioxide and the associated gases, that will be leads to the global warming. So because of that, this particular SDG will be impacted much. And here in ocean research, we are working particularly of that SDG 14, life below water. And if there are any collaboration work, that you're always welcome, and you can that interact with our HOD, you can always welcome. So further we can take it forward. Thank you. Thank you, Ram.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Uh, uh, Thank you for informational lecture. Dear participants, if you have any questions, please post on the chat box or and raise the hand. Sir, one question is that the chat
Yes,
box.
please. Understand.
Good morning, sir. Is there any coral restoration and experiment is going on to your institute? If you, what are the difficulties you faced? Yes, sir. This is the question.
At the moment, there are certain parameters, as I told earlier, the basic material that can be introduced in the marine environment. In my personal experience, we have introduced steel slag that is of basic material that has metal oxides. When it comes into solution in a limited level, the basicity of the marine environment, in laboratory scale, we identified that the ocean water pH that is increased towards basicity. So the major concern is that the liberated metal oxides, in our case, the liberated metal oxides, that should not affect the structure. What we are, say, for example, if we want to make a coral reef structure, the structure should not be, the structure should be strong enough to accommodate that particular marine environmental condition. So that accordingly, the liberated the metal ions that could not be a toxic to the marine environment as well. That will be added further. There will be a negative impact in the marine environment. This is the major concern over there. But according to the previous trials and then according to the laboratory studies, if we do it further, we can optimize it in a sustainable way. Hope I have clarified his doubt. If there is anything, I am pleased to answer it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. This is the detail regarding our center facility, the characterization service and the internship and workshop and MSc Marine Biology admission have been shared in the chat box. Kindly have a look. Thank you for everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
And before closing, Ram, everyone, please don't forget to share and don't forget to utilize our facilities as it has been. Hope it has been displayed earlier. So we are very much welcome for collaboration, as well as we are introducing marine biology course for 2 years, MSc Marine Biology. So there are limited seats. There are only few left. All are welcome to join, and then the well-wishers also can promote this particular marine biology course. Thank you. Thank you, Ram.
Thank you, sir.